Welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper, best-selling author of Life After Breath and The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder, as well as near-death experiencer. Today on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder, on episode number 21, is my honored guest, Lorna Byrne. Lorna is a fellow near-death experiencer, and she connects very strongly to the angelic realm. So I'm incredibly excited to having Lorna on, and she's also an international best-selling author of the book Angels in My Hair. So this is going to be a wonderful dialogue and conversation between two near-death experiencers and two people who connect very strongly to the angel realm, like behind me. And I know you'll get so much out of our conversation. For those of you who are new to my channel, we love having you on. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more great conversations and interviews coming your way each and every week on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder podcast. And those of you coming back, we love having you on. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and comment, in the comment sections, so that we could get your input on all of our interviews. But let's get right to it. I am ready to introduce my next guest, Lorna Byrne. Thank you for coming as my honored guest on the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. It is my true honor to be in your presence. How have you been?
I have been good, and it's my honor to be in your presence as well, Jacob. And I love the name Jacob, by the way. And I like it because it's a biblical name. It's a very old name, and it tells a lot. So I'm very happy. So I'm good.
It certainly does. And the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder is, kind of allegorical for my near-death experience, where I had one literally on a ladder in a playground, and I saw angels, much like biblical Jacob. So it's a nice play on words of it. But enough about me. My audience would really love to hear a little bit about you. For starters, where are you right now? Because in the Bible, it says you to spread your seed to all four corners of the earth. And while I don't want to parent thousands of kids, my goal is to spread the message to all four corners of the earth. So tell the viewers, first of all, where you are right now.
Well, where I am right now is in the old farmhouse, and I'm in one of the little rooms that we have turned into kind of a little office, and I can turn and look out the window there and look across the fields and see the hills. Wow. So I love the old farmhouse. It's made of stone, so it can't be blown down. It's stone in that way. So here in Ireland, and the weather here in Ireland can be, you always bring rain gear with you.
Yeah, well, it's raining right now here, so we're in sync.
Oh, is it?
It's pouring outside, yeah. So we're in sync town. I was telling you before we started, recording that, around this time marks the 30th year of my near-death experience, an experience that I encountered hundreds of angels, and it's something that never leaves me. And I have been a big fan and follower of yours throughout the years. And when I think of an angel, I think of you because you personify all things angelic realm. But for those of my viewers who, haven't, really heard about you or your books, could you just give a little bit of a background, a little bit about yourself? And I know we have a lot of common ground too that we could get into as well throughout the conversation.
I suppose the little bit about myself is that, I'm dyslexic, severely dyslexic, and I was considered when I was a small child and even teenager and even adult, that I was retarded because I, never learned how to read. And sometimes when somebody would say something to me, sometimes it comes in backwards. In that way, or if you ask me to go left or right. But the one thing I do love, I've had the angels have been my teachers, my companions, my best friends. And when I was an infant, I know the book Angels in My Hair, I tell part of this story lying in the cot and reaching up and trying to play with them. Even when my mom was trying to fix me in the cot or give me something in that way. But as I started to walk and maybe, toddle around a bit, I think I was maybe about 2 or 2.5 or maybe 3. I'm only guessing my age as such. I was a late talker because I didn't need to talk because I was already in communication with the angels telepathically. I would say a 3 and a 5-way system. That's the way I call it. But one day I was playing in front of the fire with my brother, and he said to me he can sit with his back to the fire, but he wouldn't feel the heat. And you've got to remember, I was a very young child. And it was at that time when I was playing with the little wooden blocks that my dad had made for me. And his hand and my hand is like, they touched. And there was just sparks everywhere, and just so much, what would you say, love and joy. And it was just at that very moment, the angels had said I was to keep it a secret, that they were angels. But they did tell me that my brother was a soul, that he had died before I was born, because many times I would see him in my mom's arms when she was asleep in the armchair in front of the fire. But he'd be a tiny infant. And other times, he would be off playing with me, but he would be older than I was. And I think that part of that story in Angels in My Hair have given parents, families, great comfort, because we don't die. It's only the human body that dies. We live. But the angels were always reminding me all my life to keep it a secret, never to say anything. And I know if I did say anything way back then in Ireland, because I was considered retarded, they didn't know anything about being dyslexic or anything like that. So it wasn't their fault. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I would have been put into an institution. So the angels constantly reminding me, to keep it a secret, don't say anything. Even when I was a teenager, even when, in a sense, I always remember going for my first job in Penny's, the clothes shop, and not being able to fill out the form. And someone filling it out for me. Things like that were very, very hard. But I've had the best teachers in the world. And wow. That's the angels. They have taught me everything I know. And to me, that is incredible. They would bring me out across the fields. They taught me everything out in nature. And today I would say to myself, why can't you see what I see physically? Because I see the angels physically, just like you're seeing me now on the screen.
Yes.
But it is very seldom that I would see someone's angel on a screen like this. So I can't see your angel. That seldom happens, but it only happens, I think, for a particular reason at a particular time. But I know you would love me to be able to say, I can see your angel. But one thing the angels have always taught me, and that is you must be truthful.
Integrity is very important. Honesty and integrity.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm looking at myself when I'm talking to you because, it's amazing that we could grow up in the other parts of the world, other cultures, other time frames. But it's like I almost feel like I'm looking at a reflection of my own story, just in another setting. And it's affirmative about how, much we have in common and how we all connect to the same source. When I was a young child, I had my near-death experience September of 1993, and I was just the young age of 3 years old. Like yourself, I kept it quiet for almost 2 decades. And, that was healing, but it was, I felt a lot more comfortable keeping it to myself than I did telling people. And it was hard growing up in a world where I was a young child, but I felt old, and the people around me felt young. And people that I saw as adults, I saw as children, really, because of their forgetfulness of these things. And it's a very complex trajectory, I think that we both shared. A question for you is twofold, because this is music to my heart, because whenever I give an interview, people will, and even people who are tuned into this stuff, I still feel very alienated, because they'll say, "Oh, you were just a boy. What do you know? How do you remember that? How is that possible?" And even like people who are like just so deep into this, and it's like, I'm gonna stop interviewing because it's so frustrating needing to explain myself, but I do it for the few that will answer to it. So how do you see soul age versus human age? And my other question is, when did you start, you know, getting public? Because I know the angels told you to keep it very close to your heart and not to tell. So when did that happen, and how did that happen?
That's a lot of questions, but
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to answering them. But one thing you were saying there yourself, when you were young, and you had that experience, you felt old, much older, and you felt all the adults were children.
Right.
I love the way you say that, because we are all children. Even those that believe we're adults were actually just children.
Mhm.
And that's the first time I've ever heard anyone else say that. So that is very, very beautiful. I kept it a secret all my life until after my husband Joe had died. And at one stage, when I was walking home with my young daughter in the pram asleep, Archangel Michael came up behind me. And I was a young mother, I was busy. And I always remember getting annoyed with him and telling him to go away. I didn't want to hear what message he was bringing me, because I was a busy mom, and just wheeling the pram and just stopping and turning to him and giving out to Archangel Michael at that stage. And he just said he had a message for me, and that was that I would write soon. And to me, that was right. How impossible. Couldn't even write my name, never mind anything else. And I just thought God was crazy in that sense, and he just said as well, help would be sent. And, time is different. Our human time is different than the spiritual time. It's like, because it was years later, when my husband did die, someone knocked on the door, someone that I had said to, I was going to write, and they knew I couldn't read or write, and they arrived at the door with a gift. And I didn't even realize that time, fully. And they brought 2 boxes in. I'm cutting the story short, and they put them on the table. And one was actually a printer and a laptop, because I had no money. We were extremely poor. Sometimes even I know what it is to be homeless. I know what it is to be hungry. I know what it is, to, in a sense, and so do my older children as well, in that way. But yet God and the angels always provided somehow, in life. But yeah, I kept it a secret until then. And when I was given that gift, of the laptop and looking at it, then, came down to this farmhouse, this was offered as well. Just so many miracles happened that you would say are impossible. And then someone down here in the country, strangers in one sense, a husband and wife, you met, and they just said, I said I had a laptop and a printer, and I said, I'm dyslexic. And the husband offered straight away with the wife, I'll set it up for you and make it real simple. And it was like I pressed 3 buttons, 3 things and that's all I had to do. I don't know how we did it, but again, a miracle that way. And then at one stage, I was told somebody would come as well. And when that person came, they offered to help my children. And I turned around and said no, because the angels at that time say no. I said, well, maybe you'll help me write. I have stuff on tapes, because they had me put, what would you call it, reminders. It's like, a sentence, and I would know what story goes with that sentence as such. And that lady, Jean, came out maybe once a month, one day, every now and then, and just miracle after miracle kept unfolding. And just as the angel said, the books would become bestsellers. They would go all over the world. Like, to me, it's crazy. I don't know at times even now what God is up to, because so much is still happening. Miracles are still unfolding. But I always say these miracles with God and the angels aren't for me, they're for you. And I would say, I'm nothing, you're something. I'm not important, you are. And at times, like yourself, I find it very hard to understand mankind.
Yeah, with everything going on right now, I'm sure for someone as tuned in as you are, it certainly is mind-boggling. But I mean, I know you don't see yourself as a big deal. You're very humble, but listening to you, I am so inspired, because you self-described as someone who is dyslexic and had a difficult time writing. And now, I mean, imagine if you were to go back to that child and tell that child where you are today, I'm sure you would have thought like, oh my God, that is bizarre. How does this happen? But you're making the impossible possible.
And I think that's so important for people out there, because, of all ages, because I always remember when Angels in My Hair came out and it became a bestseller, I'm a nobody as such, but when Angels in My Hair came out, it gave so much hope for so many people. I always remember so many college students coming to book signings and they saying, well, if you could do it when you can't read or write, then we can do it. They can do their exams. It was like as if it gave hope and joy, and still is today. Like, so I'm still blown away by the miracles that are happening for people in the world. But we'd like more miracles. That's what I'd tell God.
We need more of them. We were both miracles. And my listeners know I attended a community college, and I was put at the lowest possible non-accredited classes for reading and writing. And I was the only kid out of 30-something kids to get out of there. But if you were to tell me, hey, you'd be writing 2 books, they'd be bestsellers too, I thought you're on something. But I think what you're saying is so spot on. I just got back from the Edgar Cayce Center doing a presentation, and I find that a lot of the spiritual teachers that we know of, they're on a human level, they're quite ordinary, but they surrender to the extraordinary. And what makes them great is that they don't attribute their greatness to what they're doing. It's just this is flowing through them and not from them. And that's the real impression that I get from you. You just surrender this higher intelligence. Everyone has a capacity to experience the extraordinary in their lives.
Yeah, I believe that because, as a child and even now, I'm still learning. They're still teaching me. The angels are still teaching me. And to me, that is incredible, because one thing I can't understand is why people at the moment, they will say, what's my guardian angel's name? They will say, how can I connect to my guardian angel? But you're already connected. Your guardian angel is the gatekeeper of your soul. It's right there with you. It's the one angel that can never leave you for 1 second. All other angels come and go, and even the souls of loved ones come and go. And in different cultures, they might call them guides. They might give them a different name, but they're one and the same. And I love that, because it's like sometimes when I go to another country and, how would I say this? I'm looking down at an audience, or I'm out on the street, and, the light of someone's guardian angel opens up. And sometimes that guardian angel will, how would I describe this, will be dressed in the costume of that country, but absolutely incredible. And I find it so hard to describe that, because an angel is light, just like your soul is light, but yet they give such an incredible appearance within that for us to recognize. If they didn't give that touch of a human appearance, I wouldn't be seeing them, I don't think. It's just that within that light, they do that. And, with traveling all over the world for so long now, for 6 to 9 months out of the year, I have never as yet, and please God, never, seen anyone without a guardian angel, regardless of what religion they are or what their beliefs are, or even if they would say they believe in nothing. I would see the guardian angel with them. And I would love that intertwining to start happening. And I believe it is, because I believe more and more people are interested, because mankind is more educated. So we're asking questions, and we're digging into our own knowledge as well. And we're looking for, how would I say, sometimes we say, I'm looking for that inner child, the other part of us, which is your soul, that spark of light of God. We're wanting to know more about that. In that way, we're in complete search. And sometimes we might say, I want to love me, love myself. I want to feel that love. And that love is your soul. That's, we're kind of scraping at the human body in a sense, trying to get in that way, opening the human mind to reach in and find out about that spiritual side of us, that light, that soul, that other part of us. I just say we're human here, but our soul is here, and that's the spiritual part, and the human part now is moving towards the spiritual part. And that's people from all walks of life. But again, still in the world today, a lot of people are afraid to acknowledge that they, what would you say, believe in God, or believe in angels, or believe in, that's something else. There's something else, but I don't know what it is. I was protected, or something happened, and how did that happen? We have so many questions, but I can assure you, God is real. You have a beautiful soul. You have a guardian angel, and the souls of your loved ones, those that have died, it is only the human part of them that has died. That is all. Their soul lives, and many people, would experience, something of the soul of a loved one when it touches them.
You unpacked so much high vibratory wisdom and information. I think one of my takeaways is each listener tuning in has a guardian angel. It's not just monopolized by a select few. We all were born with one. We have one. We're forever connected to one, which I can certainly attest to with my NDE and seeing my spirit guides or guardian angels. God is real. We go on beyond the body. All these things are profound, and I know a lot of my viewers will really eat that up. They really need to hear this. We were both, born into this world very connected from an early age, and I think everyone is connected, but some forget for whatever reason. For listeners tuning in, how could people connect a little bit closer to, the spirit realm or their guardian angels? And is that connection a part of the quest for what we really need to do as a human civilization, which is having this embodiment of heaven on earth? Is that the play at hand that we need to move the needle forward, would you say?
Well, I would say we definitely need to move forward. We have to take that next step for evolution, and I call that the intertwining of the body and soul. And people are trying to make that connection. And I would just say to all of your listeners out there, if anyone feels they don't have that connection, put all their doubts away. If they're feeling, oh, this is crazy, or, any negative thought like that, it's like, put it away and give yourself a chance. Give yourself that hope, and just say to yourself, well, if I have a guardian angel, I want to connect to it. I want to start to understand a little bit more. And your guardian angel is a great teacher. I always say to everybody, there is times in your life when you should have, said no to something or said yes to something, and you were kicking yourself afterwards, or you knew you should have gone left instead of right the way everyone was telling you. It was that knowing inside of you. That was your guardian angel telling you what way to go, but you didn't. And you're kind of saying, well, why didn't I listen to myself? Why didn't I go by my, what do you call it, own intuitiveness?
Instincts, intuition.
I can't pronounce every word.
You're doing great.
But, we've all had those experiences, but we've all been in denial of them. And I would just say to you, give yourself a chance. Now ask your guardian angel. Just say to yourself in the morning when you wake up, good morning, my guardian angel. I know you are with me all day today, so I ask for help. And in a sense, at the end of the day, have a look and see how you got through things, and try and pick out where you did recognize where your guardian angel gave you a helping hand, where you actually listened or responded to that feeling you got. It's like, they're great teachers. And I would say, like, if my guardian angel said to me now, Lorna, pick up this glass of water. You see the glass of water. I would just pick it up. But a lot of us, when we're being taught, we ask, well, what does it mean if I pick up that glass of water? There is no meaning. They are only teaching you to respond. That's the meaning. And, a lot of the time, You might be told to get up and go for a walk. I'll just give you simple things,
Right.
But you're lazy. You say, no, I don't want to go. You sit back, or you might be told to go and ring John or Mary, but you don't bother or send that message, because we, as human beings, we are inclined to be a bit lazy at times. That's the word the angels told me to use. And I always very lazy. I always remember saying, but people won't like that word, lazy. And they said, oh, use it because it is a clear word. It is a word we understand, and we can put it into place within our lives at different times. So again, I would say to you, try and not be lazy, in that way. Like, get up and go for that walk. And it doesn't mean that something is going to happen or you're going to meet someone. You're just responding to what the angel is telling you, so that when the time comes and you respond to something really important in your life, you are, jumping for joy, saying, I did it. Right. You know what I mean? The angel doesn't want, your guardian angel doesn't want credit for anything. It doesn't need it. But you as a human being need that credit in that way. So that's what I would say to everyone, and ask them for a sign, and one sign that angels give all of the time, quite easily, well, most of the time, is a feather. It is one of the most common, and it depends on what part of the world you're in, what color that feather will be. Okay. And sometimes even a flower, like I've heard people say they have asked for flowers and all of that. And I have watched in a park there even last summer, the summer gone, a park that's near us. And I watched this young child, about 10, pull a wild flower. And I was watching her guardian angel whispering in her ear, and seeing the child then stand up, turn around and look around, and then head in a direction and go and hand it to a stranger. And I have seen the stranger take the flower and say, thank you to the child. It's very beautiful, lovely, and all of that. And then walk off and, drop it on the ground. But I was being told by their guardian angel, they asked for flowers, but they weren't expecting, a wild flower from a child. So they didn't think that was their flower. They were expecting someone to give them a bunch of flowers. And that's what can be very hard for the angels as well, because just say an angel puts a thought into your mind, to give someone a flower or to make that phone call. That could be a sign that that person has been asking for, but you didn't do it. You're lazy, in other words. You don't bother, or you say, why should I, in that way. So I always ask people to try and respond to those little things, and to always remember that your guardian angel or any angel will never ask you to be mean or selfish or to be cruel or to hurt anyone. If you're being that way, that's the human part of you that's been that way, not the soul, not the spiritual part, and definitely not any angel or your guardian angel.
It's all from a very loving, empathic, caring place. I love every word of what you are saying, because it rings true to my NDE, where I was in a playground and I was just a child. And I think God in the spirit realm has a sense of humor, that there's a saying, we're all children in God's playgrounds, as our brothers and sisters, gatekeepers, here to look out for others. And what I'm hearing from you is, the angels aren't just for us, but we're just the messengers for other people too, for what could benefit their lives. And so it's not just about us. They use us too for other people. And if we could think just beyond the self, I think, wow, what a difference the world can make. But you also mentioned something too, that the angels speak through the mind, because I know a lot of people that I speak to think it's kind of like Whoopi Goldberg in the movie Ghost, with like this big loud voice coming to you. But the mind is really in the brain, and the mind is the filter between the two worlds. I fully agree to it. And the saying that we have is, someone is tuned into the spirit realm. There's a lot of channels. And so when you're tuned to the spirit realm, means you're tuned into that channel. I live in New York, in the United States, and New York particularly, we could talk and think faster than almost anyone. So we have a lot of channels here. A lot of my viewers have a lot of channels. How could people distinguish the channels of our own, what is called in Buddhism as the monkey mind, versus that mind of clarity, that mind of the spirit realm? How could you decipher all these thoughts that you have versus those messages from those spirit guides? What would you say?
That's a real big question. I only can talk about myself in
Sure.
that sense.
Yes.
Sometimes the angels talk to me on a 5-way system. So telepathically, I'm hearing them within the mind, but I'm hearing them as I hear your voice as well. And when an angel would make itself visible, like Archangel Michael or one of the other angels or someone's guardian angel, it's not telepathically I hear them. I hear them as the voice. Wow. But I think for mankind at the moment, most of mankind is hearing it telepathically within the mind. And sometimes somebody might use the expression, they get this gut feeling, in that way.
Yes.
But that is within the mind as well. It's just that they associate it with a part of the human body. Or sometimes someone would say, I got this feeling within my heart. But again, your heart is attached to your mind. So the angels do telepathically communicate with us all of the time. And so does the souls of our loved ones. As you said, you use the word, and I'm not very good at pronouncing it. Realm. You realm.
Realm. Realm. Different dimensions. Yeah.
In that way. And I do love the way people talk in what would I say, that language, because I would call that a different language than myself in that way, because at times the angels talk in another language, and I can't speak it, but I can translate it, but I'd have to listen very carefully. And Archangel Michael sometimes would do that, or Archangel Gabriel. And to me, I find that amazing. But I think the important thing for people out there in the world is, to take that first step and know that they are loved unconditionally, humanly loved, and they're not judged in any way. You can't say, lots of people would say, well, I don't deserve to have a guardian angel. I don't deserve that love. But your guardian angel loves you unconditionally, and it's a gift, again, from God. So why would you throw a gift away? Why would you put it in a drawer or in a bin in that sense? So it is that we are to do our best, regardless of what we believe, to communicate. And the one way to remember is, again, I know I said it a minute ago, your guardian angel will never ask you to do anything wrong. So if you're thinking of doing something that is not quite right in any way, that's the human self.
Right.
That's that other coming in.
Right.
And we have got so good at pushing away that spiritual voice, that spiritual knowledge that's been given to us, the right way to go. We've got so good at it that in a sense, we have made it lower, and we want to ignore it in that way. But now mankind is starting to wanting to hear it and to do the right thing. And another way to make that connection really strong is to pray. And it's not necessarily words as such. It's like that silence. It's like, clearing the mind as such in that way. And you and I and your listeners are already in prayer, because we are talking of the soul of God and the angels, and we're talking of love and good and hope.
That's so spot on. I've heard it before that people will say prayer is conversations with God. And meditation, in a way, is just listening and tuning into it. So incredibly spot on. I think the word itself, for people who are in this, has a lot of stigma to it because there's a religious association with prayer. But this is more of an internal prayer where we're connecting individually versus a collective prayer in a belief system and organized, structure. So I feel the word needs to be different in a way for more people to ascribe to it, because they think it's like a church or a synagogue or a mosque. And those things are great, but a lot of people find that, that is quenching, their thirst, but there's something more, and that's what causes people to tune into our types of channels in a way.
Yeah, I would love people in the sense to pray more, because I would say it can move mountains. And as I said, it can be in, conversation. We are praying now because we are speaking of all of the good things, and we want all of the good things in the world. We want, peace. We want hunger to be gone. We want climate change to be fixed. We want the leaders of the world to end wars, and we want the leaders of the world to listen as well. We want them to listen spiritually, to take the positive guidance to help to heal the world even more in that sense, to make this world like that little glimpse of heaven that I have been shown is possible. In where we have intertwined with the human body and the soul so well that, you see your guardian angel physically, in such a powerful way. Or a mother or a father will say to their child's guardian angel, I'm going upstairs for a minute, keep an eye on the little one. That we don't need so many material things anymore, because we have connected, that intertwining has happened, and our world becomes, our planet is very important, becomes like that little glimpse of heaven. It has all become healed. There is no more pollution. There is no more bad air. There is no more poison in the rivers or anything like that. It was just so incredible to be shown this, to see it, and I saw it physically,
You saw the possibility of the planet.
I saw beyond that possibility,
wow.
And that's why I know mankind can do it. Like, we can do it. So we can't give up on that hope that God has given us, that is there. We've got to grasp that hope, and we've got to acknowledge that we're not just human beings, we're spiritual beings as well. We have this soul that was given to us.
Yeah.
you know. And at times I often would say to God, don't know why you fell in love with this. And I don't know when that happened, whether we were a blob or whether we were even before the planet was created, or whether he fell in love with us afterwards. God has never given me the time, but I don't know why God fell in love with us. Because when I look on the world at times, I see so much good, but then I see what we're doing, and I don't understand why we are hurting each other, why we're starving children, why we're killing our planet. I don't understand that. I find it really hard to understand mankind, where I
I think
understand
it'll,
the spiritual side,
from what I'm
so
getting a lot from you, Lorna, is that the soul is the solution. When people really connect to that spiritual phyla in themselves, that allows them to really alter how they connect and see the others. In other words, the illusion of the self. And my hope was during the last couple of years that we could stop seeing someone suffering as outside of ourselves, but we could rather see, everyone's experiences as something that we're never connected to. And as one of my guests, Eben Alexander, said, no child left behind, that each person is so significant. We are so responsible, for caring for each one. But there's a lot of cultural pieces. I think there's a lot of human and cultural myths that overtake this part. And that's the big battle at hand, is the human and cultural myth and the spiritual awareness. We're talking a lot of macro stuff, but just from a personal level, you're mentioning, because I know a lot of my listeners are tuned in, and when you're tuned in, you're very empathic. When you're very empathic, it's hard to survive and to live day in and day out with all of this divisiveness, vitriol, hatred, you name it, that's going on. How do you persevere each day? Because I'd imagine that on so many levels, for someone as tuned in as you are, that has to be quite challenging. What's your why? What's your why and your how for survival of these during these times?
It's a hard question to answer. And I know at times I've written in the books what it's like. I'm being ripped apart, shred by shred, but it's worth it. It's worth it to help mankind, and even though I would hide from God at times, but when I look out onto the world and I see what's happening, and I see so much love there as well, and so much good.
Right.
I can't turn away from that, and at times I just say to God, why do you still have me here? Because I am a miracle medically. I shouldn't be alive, but I am here, and God is at the moment keeping me here, and still has me on a journey. And I would say to people, I take those stepping stones one at a time, and I never mind where it's bringing me. It doesn't matter, because it's like if each stepping stone changes something in the world in some way, or saves a life, or puts a smile on a child's face, or a teenager, or a mom or dad, if it gives them hope, that's worth it. That's priceless. It's all the things that, are priceless in life that are the most important things. When we're losing a loved one or something happens, all the material things don't matter anymore. But mankind is so focused on the material things. And I know we need, every family and nature needs a roof over their head. They need food. They need love. They need hope. And we have to give that, until the time that intertwining starts to happen even more. We have to start working on that and going down those stepping stones one at a time. And, again, I would say making this world like a glimpse of heaven. There's so many ads on the TV and all of that, and so much you hear. And you hear of so many charities doing so much great work, But again, the first part of your question there, religion has an awful lot to do with, and all religion, with, what would you say, putting down mankind, keeping control of mankind.
Right.
And in a sense, I always remember when Angels in My Hair came out, God said to me, I was to say at every talk I did, that mankind has to stand up and be counted. Everyone has to play their part. So we all have to play our part. And no part is tiny or smaller than another or bigger than another in any way. Every part is so, so important, whether it is that smile. But I know mankind is standing up and playing his part, in so many ways. But some of us are standing up and playing our part, but we shouldn't be angry. We shouldn't be hating. We shouldn't be wanting to condemn others that are different than ourselves. We should be loving. We should be reaching out that helping hand in that way. And I would often ask people to pray for the leaders of the world. And many a time I might name a leader, and sometimes, people will get mad and angry and say, why would you pray for that leader? That leader in that country or that part of the world is doing horrific things. But how can you if you don't pray for them and you don't ask for them, how are they going to change? How are they going to hear that spiritual voice? How is that compassion going to come in?
Right.
Even what's happening today in the world with so many leaders, they're hurt too. They're angry too. And in a sense, they're taking it out on the world as well, but they shouldn't be.
Hurt people at times hurt people. Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone hurts you or screams at you, you have to love them. Just take a little step back and love them still, because they're not really attacking you. They're attacking themselves because of the hurt and pain they feel inside of them. So you have to show love. And I know that is hard. And one thing the angels always taught me, and God would say to me, Lorna, don't take, what would I say? What will I put it? Don't take anything personal. It's not about you. It's about the other human being. You're to love them instead. So I love everyone. I don't care who they are or what they have done. Lots of people would say, Lorna, how can you love a person that is bad and has done horrific things? I would love them too, because they have a soul and a guardian angel as well.
Yeah. It's like we may not agree with the horrific acts that they do, but we could at times decipher the soul in the individual behind all that is really acting out of a lot of the rubble of pain and suffering, and having compassion and seeing that at the core of that is a soul. And that's what we pray for. But that soul has been overtaken by, dark forces or barriers to it. And that's, to me, people ask me, what is hell? I don't believe in it when you cross over, but hell is really a separation from your true foundational core, and not a disconnect.
Well,
That
I suppose in one sense you could say that, but people would always ask me that question, and I
the
would say,
commonly asked question. Yeah.
yeah, and I would say, well, God has never shown me hell, so I don't believe it exists.
Right. Yeah. If we're in an
And
NDE, yeah,
yeah,
to me, I hear of NDErs talk about those things, and I just say, it wasn't a full crossover experience because when you're in the light, there is no room for the dark. It's just pure light.
no,
And that's
no.
a human thing, but that's not, what happens. Now, I work full time in the mental health field, as a therapist in a psychiatric facility. And I love every word of what you're saying because, at least in the mental health field, we're now incorporating a lot of spirituality into our practice, which has taken quite some time. As you alluded to, you were afraid as a young child because they would put someone who was having psychic experience and identified as psychotic. And so I think what you're saying from your own life is having a spiritual foundation has allowed you a lot of perseverance and resilience, as well as a greater purpose. So, but for people struggling, and I know in the United States right now and throughout the world, and I just have an anniversary of my best friend who completed suicide. We're having suicide, awareness and prevention month. But for people who may be hurting, or struggling, do you have any things? Because I know a lot of my viewers are sometimes you're drowning and you're looking for that thing to hold on to keep you afloat. And I'm wondering, do you have any words that you've gathered throughout the years from your own guardian angels, to really speak to those who are hurting on a plethora of levels?
I know there is, millions of people hurting in that way, severely anxious, depressed, all you name it. I know some people might have a chemical imbalance, and
There's a
when
lot
that
of
balance
factors. Yeah.
is fixed, they usually get back life again, in the sense that everything becomes level. I would often, when I'm giving a talk, it would be pointed out to me those who have already tried to commit suicide or who are thinking of it. And I have to smile because they always understand these words when I say them. And I usually point at them like this, I would say, don't you dare. And they know exactly what that means. The thing is, you have to give them hope. You have to give them hope. And I know I have given hundreds and thousands of people hope in that way, and they haven't committed suicide, and they have gone looking for the help that they need, and they have received it. And, they have got back their life again. But at the moment, the world is full of anxiety, and so many young people, especially young people, I'm meeting them, teenagers, very young teenagers, college students, just in their 20s. And you've got to give them hope. But one thing I tell them to do is start to love themselves, because again, loving yourself, that love comes from your soul, and it's there. And I would often describe it like, sometimes, if you have a bottle of milk and you turn it upside down, you expect it to empty, but it never empties. It's unlimited in that if I'm saying that word right,
Yes.
you never run out of it at all. And it is to start to love themselves, to see that they are unique, they are beautiful, and that they are pure love. And it is hard to love yourself because, again, sadly to say, religion and customs have told you you're not allowed to love you.
Right.
That's
Right.
greedy, selfish.
In order to feel that you should be loved, you need to do something. It becomes a whole transactional checklist. versus loving yourself, not for your own doing, but your inner being. And
Yes.
I think what you said is there's an unlimited supply of love to go around. And in our world of financial scarcity and capitalism, we're not used to that. We're used to sometimes looking at the spirit realm through a capitalistic sense where it's for the top of the top. But for me, who am I to feel that? And Jesus himself would say the same, the kingdom of heaven in me is in you. So all of what you're saying has rang true throughout the eons of time. It's so spot on.
Well, you have to remember the things that we are all looking for and hoping for, you can't buy. You can't go into a supermarket and buy hope or love or peace. You know, all of those things. They're already in you. That's your soul. They're already there, and we have to, you know, allow ourselves to open. And for those that are suffering there, you know, they have to start to love themselves, and they will find their anxiety will start. It'll start to get less and less, because they'll start to see that they are a good person, you know, that they can get through the fear, they can take the next step, and they are lovable too. But they have to love themselves. I tell people, give yourself a hug and say, I love me, you know, and feel it. And you do feel it. You know, you've got to allow yourself. But again, faith has, different religions have told us for thousands of years nearly, you know, it's wrong to love you. You know, if you have an ice cream, you must give some to someone else. But at times we need to have the ice cream for ourselves, to love ourselves, because you can't love anyone else or anything else any more than you love you. So you can imagine someone that is full of anxiety and fear, and they're not able to love themselves. You know, they feel empty. They feel, you know, just all the darkness around them, and they feel they can't get to the light because they're not allowed to love them. I'd love to hand everybody, you know, the ice cream and say, sit in the corner there and just enjoy it. I would say to people, take, you know, a moment, even with a cup of tea, and stand at the doorway for yourself. It has to be for you. And enjoy that cup of tea, even if you only at the beginning can enjoy it for 2 seconds. And then you say, oh, I can't do this. But you have to keep on trying. That's what I would say to them. And I have met many years later that would say, you saved my life. I don't know what was wrong with me back then in that sense, you know, and it's like the past is gone. And I suppose so many times in our childhood, you know, in the past, we have been put down and considered, you know, stupid, silly, you're not good enough. And that has locked your love away. That has put, I always say, this big iron strap around you, and you have it pulled tight because you don't feel you're of any use to mankind or to this world, but you are. I love you, so don't you dare. Okay.
John Lennon would say, love is the answer. And as two near-death experiencers, we entered the doorway, the greatest fear that many people have, and we come back to say that from the so-called abyss of the human experience, that on the other side of that is eternal love. And we remember that we are eternally loved by our creators, our guides, our angels. All this I know will help out so many of my viewers, and it's what is needed. That seems like the medicine. Is it possible to maybe close with a short prayer or any
I tell you, I will say the prayer that Archangel Michael gave me years ago.
Yes.
I was in bed, And he came into the room and woke me up and said I was to write, and I couldn't write. Mm-hmm. So I was so confused. And he stood at the edge of the bed, dressed completely different than normal. And he had a scroll in his hand, and he took his time. It was like, he helped me to make scribbles that I would understand. But if you looked at the paper, you wouldn't have understood it or made anything of it in that way. And it felt like as if he was there for ages, with the scroll and calling out this prayer. And when Angels in My Hair came out, a lot of the publishers, and even in other countries as well, wanted to change it because they said it wasn't proper English. But it has gone all over the world now. So I don't know what they were seeing wrong in it as such, because these are the words that God had given to Archangel Michael to give. So I will say this prayer now. Okay, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Prayer of thy healing angels that's carried from God by the Archangel Michael. Pour out thy healing angels, thy heavenly host, upon all of your listeners and yourself. Let them feel the beam of thy healing angels upon them, the light of your healing hand. I will let the healing begin, whatever way God grants. God bless us all. Amen. So I say that prayer for all of your listeners and for yourself. And I ask for blessings of good tidings for you and your family, and for your listeners as well, and especially those that you just mentioned at the end that are suffering mentally in different ways, for we all do at different times in our lives, and it's nothing to be ashamed of whatsoever. And I love you all. So Amen. God bless.
We love you too, Lorna. Thank you so much for being my honored guest on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. I loved every word, and I just met you a couple moments ago, but I felt like I've known you throughout, time. So you're welcome back any moment that you would like to on my channel, but thank you for all that you do for humanity. You're a tremendous luminary, and I couldn't thank you enough for your generous time and your wonderful insights. Lorna Byrne, thank you so much. An honor to have you. We'll keep in touch.
Same here, and God bless.
Well, that was a great interview with Lorna Byrne on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. It was an honor to have her here on episode 21. Lorna really gave a lot of hope and faith and talked about her personal encounters with angels and really personified what angels could bring to our everyday lives and how they could really help out humanity. So I know she's an incredibly powerful messenger for the world, and we're just so lucky to have her here on my platform. So thank you all for tuning into my interview with Lorna Byrne. Make sure to continue to follow the podcast by hitting that subscribe button for more great content and interviews coming your way. Jacob Cooper signing off, and thank you for joining us here on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Much love.